Welcome to another video tutorial. In this video, I'm going to show you what the cosine rule is and how to use it to answer exam questions. The formula for the cosine rule is provided to you on the formula sheet, which is the second page of your exam paper. So let's see what the cosine rule is. In triangle ABC, we label each side with the lowercase of the same letter of the angle that is opposite to that side. So we label the side opposite angle A with lowercase a, and the side opposite angle B with lowercase b, and the side opposite angle C with lowercase c. Let's say that in the question, angle A is provided to us. So the size of angle A is given. Then we start the cosine rule formula by the side opposite to angle A. So the side opposite to angle A is lowercase a. So we write the cosine rule formula as follows. A squared equals, then the other two sides are B and C. So we write B squared plus C squared, then minus 2 times BC times cos of the angle A. So this is the formula for the cosine rule, which is also provided on your formula sheet, so you don't need to memorize it. Now, we want to know how to recognize in a given question if we can use the cosine rule. So as we can see here, we need to have one side, two sides, three sides, and one angle. So the hint that we need to remember is that we need three sides and one angle in order to be able to use the cosine rule. An exam question. Work out the value of x and give your answer to one decimal place. The question that we always ask ourselves is that, are the information given in the question enough for us to use the cosine rule? Recall that the condition for using the cosine rule was three sides and one angle. Here we have one side, two sides, and three sides, and one angle. Therefore, the answer is yes, the information is enough to use the cosine rule. In order to use the cosine rule, we must first identify which side represents which letter in the formula. We know that the angle that we use in the question is angle A. So we write A for the angle. And the side opposite to angle A is lowercase a. Then the other two sides in any order are B and C. Then we just substitute these into our formula and we get x squared equals 13 squared plus 10 squared minus 2 times 13 times cos of the angle A, which is 100 degrees. We then type the numbers which are on the right hand side into our calculator, and we get x squared equals 314.1485262. These are the numbers that are displayed on the screen of our calculator. In order to find x, we have to take square root of both sides. So we take square root of 314.1485262, and we get x equals, since the question wants the answer to one decimal place, we read from the screen of our calculator to one decimal place, and it gives us 17.7 centimeters. We write centimeter because x is the length. Another exam question which is very similar to the previous one. Work at the length of AB and give your answer to one decimal place. Since the length of AB is unknown, we write x for it. Now we see that we have 1, 2, and 3 sides and one angle. Therefore, we meet the conditions for using the cosine rule. Now we need to identify which side represents which letter in the formula. We know that the angle that is given in the question represents the angle capital A. So we write A for the angle. And the side opposite angle A is lowercase a. And the other two sides in any order are B and C. We then substitute these values into our formula and write x squared equals 15 squared plus 12 squared minus 2 times 15 times 12 times cos of angle A, which is 20 degrees. We then type in these numbers into our calculator and we get x squared equals, reading from the screen of our calculator, we have 30.71065652. In order to find x, we have to take a square root from both sides, and we get x equals square root of 30.71065652. And the answer that we get to one decimal place is going to be 5.5 centimeters. Again, x is a length, therefore we write centimeters. The third exam question. Work out the size of angle ABC and give your answer to the nearest degree. First of all, let's figure out which one is the angle ABC that the question refers to. The angle is given in 3 letters, A, B, C. And we always pick the middle letter, which in this case is the letter B, and that is the angle that the question refers to. And since the angle ABC is unknown, we write the letter X for it. We notice that here we have 1, 2, 3 sides and one angle. Therefore, we meet the conditions for using the cosine rule. And we know that to use the cosine rule formula, we need to identify which side represents which letter in the formula. We know that the angle in the question always represents the capital letter A in the formula. So we write capital letter A for the angle X. And the side opposite angle A represents lowercase a, and the other two sides in any order represent the letters B and C. We then substitute these values into our formula and we get 10 squared equals 9 squared plus 5 squared minus 2 times 9 times 5 times cos of the angle in the question, which is X. Let's calculate these values. 10 squared is 100 equals 9 squared is 81 plus 5 squared is 25 minus 2 times 9 times 5 is going to be 90 cos of angle X. So we have 100 equals 81 plus 25 is 106 minus 90 cos of angle X. This is the equation that we need to solve in order to find the value of X. And to solve the equation, we need to first of all subtract 106 from both sides. So on the left hand side we have 100, take away 106, which gives us minus 6, and on the right hand side we have these two cancel out, and we are left with minus 90 cos of angle x. And since we have minus 90 times cos of x, the next step is to divide both sides by minus 90. Dividing minus 6 by minus 90 on the left hand side will give us 1 over 15. And on the right hand side, these two will cancel out, and we are left with cos of angle x. So cos of angle x is equal to 1 over 15. And in order to find x, we have to do cos inverse, or cos minus 1. In brackets, we write 1 over 15. And to calculate this on our calculator, we will get, on the calculator, we have to press shift, then cos, and in brackets we type 1 over 15, and we close the brackets and we press equal. That will give us 86.177 ... So let's write it down. X equals 86.177 ... But the question says give your answer to the nearest degree. So x would be equal to 86 degrees to the nearest degree. The fourth exam question. Work out the value of x and give your answer to one decimal place. In this question, we have two triangles that are attached together along one of the sides. So we draw the triangles separately so that we can analyze them easier. We notice that the angle x that we need to work at its size is in the triangle on the right hand side, which is also a right-angled triangle. And we know that in any right-angled triangle in which there is an angle involved, we can use SOHCAHTOA. So let's write SOHCAHTOA. According to the position of angle x, we label the sides in the right-angled triangle. So the side opposite angle x is labeled as O, and the longest side, which is opposite the right angle, is labeled as H for hypotenuse, and the last side, which is next to angle x, is labeled as A for adjacent. The question has given us the length of the adjacent side, which is 5 centimeters. We notice that the side opposite angle x, which is labeled as O, is in common between the two triangles. In the triangle on the left-hand side, if we label this side as O as well, then we notice that we have 1, 2, and 3 sides and 1 angle. Therefore, we meet the conditions for using the cosine rule. We now need to identify which side represents which letter in the cosine rule formula so that we can use the formula to work out the missing length O. So we know that the angle in the question always represents the capital letter A in the formula. So we write capital letter A next to the angle 40 degrees. And the side opposite angle A is going to be labeled as lowercase a, which we can write in a different color. Let's write in green. So this is lowercase a. And the other two sides are going to be labeled in any order as B and C. Then we substitute these values into our cosine rule formula. So we are going to write a squared, but in order to avoid any confusion, we know that the side A also represents the opposite side to angle x, so we just write O for A. So we write O squared, this is the letter O, O squared equals 10 squared plus 13 squared minus 2 times 10 times 13 times cos of angle 40 degrees. So we write O squared and we type these numbers on the right hand side into our calculator and we get 69.82844479. We then take square root of both sides and we get O equals 8.356. So that means that the length of the opposite side to angle x is 8.356. Now we can see that in the right angle triangle where the angle x is, we have the length of adjacent, which is 5, and we also managed to work out the length of the opposite side, which is 8.356. Since we have O and A, we can then go to SOHCAHTOA and see that we can use tan, because in tan we have both O and A. So we write tan of angle x equals opposite over adjacent, 8.356 over 5. In order to get the value of x, we need to use tan inverse. And in brackets, we write 8.356 over 5. And to type this in our calculator, we must use shift and then tan, which gives us tan inverse. And in brackets, we type in 8.356 over 5. And we close brackets, and then we press equal. That gives us 59.10 ... But the question wants the answer to be given in one decimal place. Therefore, we write x equals 59.1 degrees to one decimal place. The fifth exam question. In this question, as we will see, we have a combination of the sine rule and the cosine rule together. Once again, we have two triangles that are attached together along one of the sides. So we draw the triangles separately so that we can analyze them easier. The question says, ABCD is a quadrilateral and the diagram not accurately drawn. Work out the length of DC and give your answer correct to 3 significant figures. We know that the length DC is one of the sides in triangle BCD on the right hand side. And since the length DC is unknown, we write the letter X for it. We also note that in triangle BCD, two of the angles are given, the angles 40 degrees and 80 degrees. So according to the conditions, we might be thinking of using the sine rule in triangle BCD. You can click on the above link to watch my video on the sine rule. However, we remember that to use the sine rule, we needed two angles and their opposite sides. For the angle 40 degrees, its opposite side is given, which is x. But for the angle 80 degrees, its opposite side is not given. So we're going to label that as y. But we note here that the length BD that we've labeled by the letter y is in common between the two triangles. So we can write y for BD in triangle ABD on the left hand side too. Now we can move to the triangle ABD on the left hand side and use the information from that triangle to find the length y, and then move back to the triangle BCD on the right hand side and then use the sine rule to work out the length x. So let's work inside triangle ABD on the left hand side. Here we notice that we have 1, 2, and 3 sides and 1 angle. Therefore, we meet the conditions for using the cosine rule. But in order to use the formula for the cosine rule, we first need to identify which side in the triangle represents which letter in the formula. And we know that the angle in the triangle always represents the capital letter A in the formula. So we are going to write capital letter A for the angle of 78 degrees. And we also know that the side opposite angle A represents the lowercase letter a. But in order to avoid any confusion, we are not going to write lowercase a, as we have already labeled that side BD, which is opposite angle A, by the letter y. And the other two sides, which are 8.2 and 5.6, are going to be labeled in any order by letters B and C. Now we're going to substitute these values into our cosine rule formula. So we get y squared equals 8.2 squared plus 5.6 squared minus 2 times 8.2 times 5.6 times cos of the angle, which is 78 degrees. We then type the numbers on the right hand side into our calculator, and we get y squared equals 75.18539. To find y, we take square root from both sides. So we take square root of 75.18539, and that gives us y equals 8.67095. Remember that we must keep writing the numbers to more than 3 significant figures and only round the final answer to 3 significant figures as the question wants. So now that we worked out the value of y, we can move to the triangle on the right hand side, which is the triangle BCD, and write the answer instead of y. So we write 8.67095. So remember that we mentioned earlier that because we have two angles and their opposite sides, therefore we can use the sine rule in triangle BCD. So using the sine rule, we write the side x over sine of its opposite angle, which is 40 degrees, equal to the side 8.67095 over the sine of its opposite angle, which is 80 degrees. Since we are working out the length x, we cover it and we use cross multiplication and divide by sine of 80. So let's write it down. We get x equals sine of 40 times 8.67095 divided by sine of 80. And after typing this into our calculator and reading from the screen of our calculator, we round the answer to 3 significant figures. which will be 5.66 centimeters.